Hi, welcome to the Mr. Crypto Show, where we take a look at the Web3 landscape, the good, the bad, even laugh a little bit at the ugly, and also bring you the best entrepreneurs and projects and have discussions with them with real value and not just, some commercials for their projects. So let's get right into it. Today we have someone that I've got to meet personally before, has a really interesting history, and is bringing a really interesting project and universe into the Web3 space through gaming. So please meet Timo Kegel, co-founder of Mutariuum. Hello, Timo.
Hey, Grant, how's it going?
Good,
thanks. Nice to be here.
Thanks for coming on. As I mentioned, you have a really interesting history, I think, generally from people that I've met, but especially for someone that's entering this space. So first, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can start talking about what you're doing in this space and with this technology.
Yeah, so I'm not coming out of the Web3 space. I'm coming out of the business development, private equity space, let's just call it like that. Working with high net worth individuals and private clients to help them basically invest into the right opportunity that arises, or at least have them notice the right opportunity. If they invest, that's always up to them. I came into the space 9 years ago when I had a brief encounter, or like an encounter with one of my really, really good friends who at that time decided to provide certain cheats, if you want to call it like that, for online games, and was being paid basically in cryptocurrency. So that was my first encounter, and it never let me go. From that moment on, I knew that, hey, paying someone anonymously and being able to, not have a banking system interact as a middleman is going to be huge in the future. So it never let me really go. I came back to the space in 2019 as a private investor and also to do research, of course. And yeah, it's something that is such a great emerging market that, for me, gives me the opportunity to introduce more and more professionality into it, and lets actually me operate in a way and in a certain freedom that other spaces won't give me or won't give other entrepreneurs.
What I found really interesting is actually, the centuries of the finance and the private equity that sits behind you, and how someone that has that long bloodline around it has the viewpoints that you do around this space and wants to get into this space. Do you mind unpacking that a little bit, kind of that history and then this transition into this?
Yeah, so of course, family always gives a certain direction into anyone's life, basically, and my direction was always, the financial world, basically. And I think what I learned there is not really in the NFT space yet. We're talking about people using all the assets they have and shoving it into one space and doing no risk mitigation. They're not risk averse, and all these things that you basically do when you're stock trading or when you are investing into, let's just call them real world assets. Everything goes out the door in Web3 and in crypto and NFTs. So for me, that was always my entry there. It's like, actually, guys, maybe we should behave a little bit more like we would invest into a stock market or into an asset, and not just use it as a fun play and handle crypto shitcoins and do all of these plays. That will just over time drain your liquidity, and you will end up with nothing in your bank account, instead of, if you're not falling for these get rich quick schemes, you can actively build wealth in this space too. It's not just risk capital.
Well, you were talking about kind of professionalizing the
Yes.
Web3 space, which you and I both got into here, into this space about a decade ago. Do you see that happening faster right now, or do you see that kind of coming in waves? Because personally, I've seen that kind of coming in, it kind of comes in waves. You know, the NFT space got really popular, which added, you know, a whole nother influx of what I could say is kind of more unprofessional viewpoints or actions. And, you know, you kind of saw that with the ICO market like 2017-ish as well. So curious about your viewpoint on that.
Yeah, I see it like that too. Like for me, it's when the market is on a high, there's so many people coming in, you know, and these TikTok and social media influencers, you know, they promise you these trading secrets and all of that stuff just to sell you a course in the end. And once the market goes into a bad place again, those people leave because, of course, there's, you know, liquidity being drained out of the market. So not a lot of people buying their courses anymore. And it basically trembles down to who's left. And, you know, that's why building in a downside of when the market is down is so incredibly important, because then you actually see who are the good people and who will stick around in the bad times too, and who will not only, you know, put his arm in the air when everything works fine and everything works super and scream for accountability then, but who will be there and scream for accountability when it doesn't go well, you know? So I think a bad market isn't necessarily bad, but it can also help us weed out these bad persons or bad people that will just want to take advantage of anyone who doesn't have enough education coming into this market.
Yeah, well, you know, diamonds are created under extreme pressure. So I think, you know, a lot of the, you know, the most valuable companies in the market today, you know, they went through their kind of dot-com bubble burst and worked really hard and pushed through that and became, you know, some of the most valuable companies around the world. So you said you started, your first exposure with crypto 9 years ago was based around gaming, was a gaming
Yes.
situation, let's say.
Yeah,
And
let's
now,
call it like that.
and now you're bringing something to market that also has a tie to gaming. So maybe you want to open up a little bit what you guys are doing over at Mutariuum.
Yeah, so we are basically building your first play, earn, and invest blockchain game. We basically have found a system built on sustainability that is not just a play-to-earn game, but lets us not just build on token economy. We have a black shard that just came out that fully is minted out. We have citizens that are fully minted out. And this game is basically a strategic board game, turn-based RPG. It doesn't have a skill gap at all. It's super easy to play, and you can basically play it with like 3 to 5 minutes a day. You place your citizens on a piece of land. They work there. They pay rent. The landlord takes rent. So both of you earn MUT. You can evolve your citizens or your land pieces with the earned MUT, or you can choose to invest your MUT into our sustainability program, which is the MU Accelerator. And that's basically what we're working on right now. We're developing this for like 10 months now. Our user interface is fully developed now, and now we are implementing the citizens, basically.
So you used a few kind of terms in there. So, you know, play, earn, invest, and they're investing into this accelerator. So what is that accelerator? You mentioned sustainability. What does that accelerator invest in?
Exactly. So the accelerator is there for Web 2 or Web 3 products that we, with Mutariuum and our partners, and that yesterday we just announced our first partner, which is Metamorphic, an agency that is being formed out of very, very successful people in the NFT space. They sold over 150,000 NFTs together under the three of them. They are very successful, and they are our first partner for our accelerator. So our accelerator basically will help these products gain the audience they need. They will have our support from our partners, from our other projects in our ecosystem, and we basically accelerate them to market with the investment of the MUT and of our partners. And once that has happened and these projects or products are producing ROI, we're taking 7 to 15%, depending on what project that is, and are redistributing that to our holders. And so it doesn't really matter how much MUT is worth or valued at an exchange. It could be worth 0, and you will still be rewarded the same based on the percentage you invest, not on the value Mutariuum has.
So you said you take a certain percentage of it. What are you taking with that percentage, right? Because it's not equity, right?
No, we're taking 7 to 15% of the revenue.
Okay, that the project generates, period.
Exactly. That's for the first time they are in our accelerator program. They have a product or project that is designed to go to the market at a certain point of time. And once that has happened and they've achieved ROI, we're going to take 7 to 15% of that, redistribute it to the holders. And from there on out, our contract with that product or project ends. And they can go on to bigger steps and go to these VCs with an actively working product.
Okay, understood. So the entry point to the game, it gave off a Sims vibe a little bit. Am I looking in the proper direction with that?
Yeah, it's a mix of many games. It's not as interactive as Sims, but it has many more layers and deeper layers to the game, and you can play it in many different ways. So it's not like one game you could basically think of. It's a mix of Sims, Risk, like a board game, maybe a little bit of Monopoly, maybe a little bit of Dungeons and Dragons, you know. All of these cool games, cool board games that we all played in our childhood, where we just had to throw some dices, you know, roll them, make a turn or two, and then the other person's turn. That's basically our whole structure and our whole premise there.
So who else do you have on the team around this?
Yeah, so 2 of my co-founders are Dean and Trish. Both of them are also the founders of Twire.gg. Twire.gg is the official PUBG statistics and analytics or data provider. And they take care of all the products and all the tournaments that PUBG needs to have interactive data from. They take care of that and provide the data to the public.
What's PUBG?
PUBG's PlayerUnknown's Battleground. It's one of probably the biggest battle royale PC game. It's also out on mobile. And yeah,
Okay.
big ecosystem.
You guys are taking a mobile focus with this?
We are a browser game, but that makes us also mobile friendly. So you can play that from your mobile phone. You just need some internet access and your wallet connected.
So that was actually going to be my next thing. How do you guys want to really bring in not some, let's say, Web3 degens or very, very native people into this world? You know, for example, you know, we talked about Copernic Space, and we work really hard in our implementing aspects around, you know, being able to use cards, you know, not having to have, you know, your own wallet to plug in, but you kind of generate it there within the app. So how are you guys approaching that aspect?
So for us, it's all about our player base or our player core base are technically the people that have never played a game or have maybe played a couple of games here and there, but they couldn't get familiar with, like, you know, playing a game for longer than an hour a day or half an hour because they don't have time or anything. And we set out to change that. So we want to actively bridge over the people that are just, you know, maybe hanging on their phone and like scrolling through Instagram or something. Just 5 minutes, you know, take your phone, open our game, and you can earn some MUT. You can reinvest it into cool projects. You can talk about investing with your faction members, with your community, with your family, you know, and have a little bit of fun again while you're doing that, and not just wait for an alpha call in a Discord or something like that. So we have a different focus there a little bit than you guys.
So outside of investing in the accelerator, what other kind of options will they eventually have? Doesn't mean have to be right away, but what are you guys looking at over long term?
So we are, of course, looking to implement our token into other ecosystems. We're currently in talks with, I don't want to say the name, but with a very interesting technology product that allows us to bridge over our gaming or in-game assets into other games. And then as well use our Mutariuum Universe token in other ecosystems. We're working on now maybe having 10 partner products and land pieces that are just co-branded with our partners that we want to work with for a longer period of time, and auction those off for a good cause. So we have some cool plans and we have some cool things that are coming, which, are gonna bring fun and are gonna bring these 30-second windows of fun over and over again, and doesn't make the game or the whole process very stagnant.
Okay, so you view this as having, like you said, an array of games within this world, right? But you do need the NFT to actually access it, though?
Yes. So once you can stake your NFT into the game, and once that has happened, that NFT is actively in the game. So now you can just leave it on a piece of land, and you don't have to check it for a week or two. So it could also be just like a portfolio, let's just call it like that, a small portfolio. It's not passive income or anything. You still have to sometimes move your citizens around or adjust the rent if you are a landowner, or make some turns with your faction members. But it's down to the really core mechanics of clicking a couple of buttons and you're set for the day or even for a week.
So you mentioned you have the NFT sold out for citizens. What was the name? Shard was the name of the other one?
The Black Shard was first with 300 pieces, and then the 10K citizens, yes.
So since those are sold out, how do you want to get these new users outside of that 10K and the Shard in?
We are dropping the land pieces in around 6 to 8 weeks from now.
Okay.
And those land pieces will actively be the ones that can produce the most MUT in-game if they are fully updated and evolved.
Okay. Because they can rent out, they're like landlords, right, as you said?
Exactly.
Okay.
So now the game gets a whole nother layer again, because now you can be your own landlord and you can stake your own citizens on your own piece of land, and avoid these greedy landlords, and, have just a easier time basically producing MUT.
So you mentioned kind of when the market's down, which obviously now isn't the most fun time for lots of people in the market. And because you have this, I would say, more traditional markets background with a big history behind it, my guess is that you have a little bit more insight or a more mature view than a lot of people would have. Although crypto is very unique, so that might go out the window. But what's kind of your viewpoint on this stage we're in right now, especially as it relates to NFTs, because your project is NFT heavy. There's lots of people in the market where they see NFT and they automatically think it's a negative connotation, and that's a good portion, especially after this drop right now. So tell me kind of your views on that. What's going to be happening in the market?
So first of all, if I'm just being honest, I think we've passed the point where our financial systems can save inflation and all that stuff, So we actively have to work on that too. There's a couple of big wildfires burning across the globe that, just make it hard for different countries to fully flourish right now. So we don't know. Everyone knows it. There's a big war going on in our world right now. There's a mortgage crisis in China. There's an energy crisis here in Europe, and there's a inflation everywhere basically. And I think until we've basically come to the point where everyone actively starts working on solving all these issues, there aren't any, good moves you can do right now in any market.
So wait,
If
are
you
you
are long,
saying that, let's say the NFT or the crypto market, kind of the valley, so to say, it's in right now, is codependent on the global kind of more traditional markets?
I would, I mean, I mean, of course, we can probably debate that for hours, but for me, crypto and NFT capital is risk capital. And when stuff goes wrong, where do you pull out your capital first, you know? It's usually there because you have other assets that still produce at least some money. And it speaks against capital preservation to just take the drawdown of 90% for the next 4 to 5 years to just hope that that one asset or these assets that you bought in the NFT space make 900% rise again to where they were before, you know? So I
Well, the
think...
reason, sorry to interrupt, the reason I brought that up is because, and I'll see this on Twitter all the time too, where it'll be like some, crisis or some situation will be like, Bitcoin fixes this, right? Or crypto fixes this, right? So my whole thing is people said that when the major markets have a big issue, that, crypto's your hedge against it. Whereas it seems that it's, based off what you're saying, it kind of almost goes the opposite way.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you can always say that, and probably, here's the thing: we're talking about these big solutions like Bitcoin and Ethereum. They're full of market makers, or a couple of market makers, and they make money in any market scenario. We don't, So it's for me, it's hard to say that crypto is a hedge against inflation or against financial crises going on in the globe, because again, institutions go into this because they can smell the quick money here. High net worth individuals go into it because they can smell the quick money here. And if they can't smell the money anymore, they're pulling their money out because there's another asset and another door opening up where they can just make the same amount of money, probably,
So
So,
how much harder or easier is it for market makers to enter and become active in the crypto space compared to the traditional space? Because market makers
way
to me
easier.
represent this very weird kind of middle ground gray line between what I mean, even regulatory aspects where they're making the market. So how does that look differently? Because I don't think a lot of people understand what are really the mechanisms behind, let's say, the curtain that are actually moving how markets move.
Well, I think the one question you can just have anyone answer there is just compare both market volumes, It's much easier to move certain cryptocurrencies than it is moving stocks,
So why don't the bigger players just become market makers in crypto if that's pretty much, a more risk averse, sustainable way?
Because it isn't risk averse, and it isn't like, you have to see they work under different rules. They have their risk mitigation factors, and they are risk averse, and they have their
More risk averse than investing in crypto is what I meant.
exactly, yes. I mean, well, the thing is, they have burned in rules and regulatory things that if you are investing into something, you have to have a whole amount of research behind it that basically supports your investment. And crypto fluctuates so heavily that it's hard for these institutions to quickly just jump into it.
Well, do
So
you see those jumps, with crypto? Do you see the traditional market, let's say stocks, and we've seen that can be quite volatile recently as well, right? So do you see this point where these two things kind of even out and kind of eases that barrier that you're talking about for entities to kind of ease? Because I've been around for almost a decade. You've been around for almost a decade. The dips are kind of smaller, right? They get smaller over time and they kind of equalize a little bit over time.
Yeah, but that's because there's I mean, there's more money in our financial system than there was 10 years ago. Like, I mean, I think we saw it with the recent crash. There was more money flowing out of the system than 2008 Lehman. So that just shows that there's just much more money in the system, right? But I would say for me, it's like we're fighting. So coming from a regulated or a regulatory background and everything, it's like crypto doesn't want that. But every day, you hear something like, oh, there's another bridge that got hacked. Oh, there's another Celsius that probably just lost another 5 billion, and you give them, I don't know, $1,000, and these guys are able to basically lend out 90% of the money you give them. And the next person, they give 80%, the next person, they give 70, and it just triples down, basically, the ladder. And it's so unsustainable. They offer you millions, percentages, APRs, and all of that stuff, and it just doesn't work like that.
Well, let's play devil's advocate here around that. Like a crypto person might come back, someone who has, let's say, a more ideological stance around it might come back and say, well, tell me how behind the doors of what's happening in the financial sphere traditionally, how much is it really that different, or is it just people behind the scenes there also picking winners and losers, right? Whereas in crypto, it's a little bit more, let's say, democratized in that sort of access to become a winner.
Yeah, democratized in a sense. It's like, you have so many projects that are just like inflated with numbers. It's incredibly hardcore to make due diligence and research on these projects. I would say 75% of project founders aren't even doxxed. So, if we want to avoid even more regulatory things coming into this market, we have to somehow start acting mature,
Well,
that
what
means,
about, sorry, go ahead.
oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Well,
I was just saying that means, like accountability has to be there. Like in the real world, there's founders who like drive their startup against the wall 2, 3, 4, 5 times, until they have the sixth one, like 15 years, and that works. And then they make some money. In the NFT space, you make 200, 300K, you delete the Discord, you change your Twitter username, and you just make another project right after with another name, scam a couple of more people. Like, there's so many factors that won't work in the real world, that are just standard and like a daily thing in the NFT space, that we just have to start working on us first before we can scream at others, It's like,
I would make the argument that stuff's happening in the traditional space as well to an insane level.
Course.
You can watch YouTube documentaries about these guys, created 30 different personalities and companies and built stuff like that. But to your point, it's not about pointing the finger at the negatives in the other, let's say, more traditional space to justify the negatives happening in Web3, right?
100%. I mean, so sorry to quickly to jump in there. Like, you're 100% right. Like, that's how Wall Street, that's how every big VC company operates. It's like it's the same basically. But still, it's like for me in an emerging market, it's something that we have to fix pretty quick. Otherwise, we hinder the growth of that market and of that sector.
Right. I was too young to actively participate in like the web boom and then the bust, the bubble burst of that. And, you can see these quotes by famous, very smart people talking about, email won't create any more change than the fax machine and all this sort of stuff. But I'm curious as to what percentage of the population viewed the internet, let's say, initially as this kind of very high risk sort of scammy environment, which was a lot of that as well, and eventually just became something that's ubiquitous with our daily life. And that's the question whether, how fast we can get this market into that. But I wanted to revert back to the kind of the regulatory thing, picking the winners and the losers and who really controls that. You saw maybe what happened to Kanye the other day with his bank account, right?
No, I didn't
So
follow.
curious to get your opinion on this. So I think it was, I forgot which bank, one of the big American ones, JP Morgan, something like that. So after he said some controversial stuff, they shut down his bank account, right? And then he was seen wearing, like, the next day wearing, like, Bitcoin hats or something like that. So my point to that is, you know, I have a regulatory background as well. Some people in crypto also know me as, you know, a co-founder of CoinFirm. So my question is, he didn't really break any regulation that you can tell from there. They shut down the account based off, you know, something they can probably find in some weird terms and conditions or something. But doesn't that make a big, valid public argument for the validity of crypto and having that custodianship? Or do you see eventually that they're just going to be taking your crypto and shutting down your stuff as well, because most people will be under a custodial play anyways?
I mean, I guess that's a big question that we're gonna probably get answered in the next 10 years. It's like, what do we actually own, you know? Like, if you rub the wrong persons the wrong way, they just take away your house. They don't just take away your bank account, they take everything away, you know? So I imagine it's the same with crypto at 1.2. Maybe not right now, because, you know, there are no clear laws and regulations about that. You see it with Do Kwon, you know, the guy. It took everyone like 6 months probably to really have an international warrant for him and really look for him. And I think, like, how long did it take the FBI to get, what was his name? Bernard Madoff, you know, the guy died in prison. They made a Ponzi scheme. And, you know, we're talking about crypto is so unregulated that people can make billions and just avoid being captured.
Well,
So,
also, you know, I have some hands-on experience of this. Crypto is kind of inherently jurisdictionless.
yeah.
So to be able to reclaim, let's say, stolen funds in that sort of situation, takes actually a very unique collaboration of multiple jurisdictions to be able to even do that. Whereas, you know, in the traditional world, in the banking system, it's, you know, the bank is here, the money is here, freeze that, you know, pull it back out, and you can't really do that with the crypto market. So that's why I say that I think that I've been saying this for I don't know how many years now, but crypto is going to be successful when you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of people using it, and they don't necessarily need to understand or know that they're even really using it, right? Which means generally it would be a custodial play.
Yeah, you have to onboard them without them even noticing they're being onboarded. And we have to come to the point where, you know, there's also enough educational material out there for anyone to just make a couple of clicks and have it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Well, one thing is that. The other thing is the whole kind of custodial aspect, right? Which is like on Copernic Space, you know, you have like space companies on one end, and then you might have, you know, some Web3 native people, but you also have a lot of commercial companies or individuals that aren't native. And like for the space companies, I'm just giving an example from my world, you know, don't they want to have, let's say, a secure custodian over those assets, or do you want your chief operating officer to lose, you know, the private keys, and then the assets are gone, right?
totally. And I mean, you're in such a unique space there with Copernic, because I think you guys are hooking in at the exact right point, is when people are very, very young. And like, I think everyone dreamt about, you know, flying to the moon or seeing the stars or whatever as a young child. So you have a very emotionally attached project that I think will do a massive amount of good and a massive amount of education for younger people that, you know, don't even want to be onboarded into the Web3 space, but because space and your project and what you're doing is so interesting that they can learn so much about it that afterwards they in the space if they want to or not, you know.
Well,
But like,
thank you
guys are
for
making it
that.
so
But I
great.
feel gaming is like the easiest bridge when it comes to that, to be honest. And what, you don't really agree with that?
I mean, let's just say to 75%, because I think, you know, there's also a lot of young people out there that are just scientifically so gifted and, adventurous that maybe they are not going into gaming. And then what is there after gaming, And then there's you guys. So I think even if you're not on maybe the upper ladder with gaming in terms of being able to bridge people over, you're coming right afterwards because you're basically you're having emotions and you're having knowledge and educational purpose behind something that is, for every child, a dream, basically. So,
Well, I think it's double spirit. Ownership is very key. For me as a person, like as a creator, I feel that ownership's super important. And from the gaming end, I got buddies who, with Final Fantasy, spent a year building a character to try to sell it for, $100,000, right, on a different thing. And this whole aspect of ownership that, my guess is that you guys are also going to bring in through your game, of having different types of, as you called, in-game assets that users can own and then potentially trade with other users. Are you guys going to host your own little marketplace within it too?
So of course that's one of our goals, to have the produced assets in-game also be then tradable and sellable on the in-game market for different other people that then need those assets for their business, or for their citizen or whatever. So of course that's our goal, and hopefully we can implement that next year.
So how do you guys view like distribution of your game? Because for example, there's a company here locally called HashUp that is a platform for hosting Web3 based games. So how do you kind of view? Because like a lot of companies are great at maybe building a product, et cetera, but that's very different than legitimately bringing it to market, right? So last kind of thing for this, how do you see going into the market? How do people discover you and then get in?
So the good thing is that we're not just launching from one day to another, and had some marketing campaigns with Steam or something. The good thing is that we already have around 2,000 holders that hold our NFTs actively. We have over 4,000 NFTs staked in under 4 days now since staking went live. 5 days, sorry. So we already have a big crowd, and our game is not designed to hold hundreds of thousands of players, but to rather more establish a community between 2,000 to 4,000 active players, daily active players, that use the ecosystem to its full extent.
Okay, but you want to grow that past that amount, right?
Of course, and we're going to do that, and we're having, of course, other cities coming into the game. We're having maybe other planets coming into it. So there are plans for that, and there are already basically structures built for that. But until then, basically there's 10,000 citizens, 2,000 faction members, and 1,000 land pieces. So that's 13,000 people max that could play the game.
Interesting. Okay. My guess is that'll expand over time with your success. Any last 100%. Words for the people? Any last words for the people around the world before we jump out of here?
Yeah, I mean, just the quick thank you. I appreciate you inviting me.
Of course.
And spending time with me, talking with me. Appreciate you asking these cool questions. And I would love to come back.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
In a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll do it again, and you'll give updates to the world around where you guys are, and we'll have more, let's say, philosophical driven discussions. So I want to thank you, Timo, for coming on, and I want to thank everybody for watching the Mr. Crypto Show. We'll be back pretty much every week with new guests, new topics. We're going to be reacting to funny Web3 projects. So stay with us and see you soon.